Hey folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you being here as always. I'm recording this at my kitchen table in my apartment. I'm in the process of reconfiguring my guest room because as I just had my friend, my buddy Leo, and his wife Mara, who are Leo. You've heard come up on the show before, but he and his wife Mara came and stayed at my place in New York City for a weekend, and it was really nice to get to catch up and meet my friend's wife, and then also to catch up with an old buddy of mine who also is a fan of the show. You hear me occasionally. Every time I bring up certain topics, I'll say, "Oh, I think I know someone who might know the answer to this." He's usually that person. So it was really great to get to see him. And to kind of transition into the show today, this is on a similar bent. My guest today is comedian and actor Mark Riccadonna. And Mark is a comic who I knew when I was the door guy at the Laughing Devil Comedy Club. He was one of the comics who would come through routinely and would be doing spots. And he's incredibly funny. I really always enjoyed seeing Mark when he came through. And we got to sit down and have this really nice conversation. And this particular episode, I leaned very heavily on asking kind of almost like Yoda, Luke Skywalker kind of questions, because when I was working that job, I was so like eager and excited and wanting to just get a seat at the metaphorical table of being in comedy, I wanted to just be included in the club. And Mark and all the other comics like Carmen Lynch, a bunch of other people that I will mention in this episode, these are all the people that I wanted to be. I wanted them to hear my jokes and say, that was really good. So to get to sit down and talk with Mark and ask some questions from someone who's been a full-time professional comic for a number of years was really exciting. And we talk about a lot of the art form of stand-up quite a bit here. And then I also have some questions for him as far as being a father and then also present for his family. And I really enjoyed the way this turned out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as well. If you listen to this and think other people who might enjoy it as well, please feel free to tell a friend. This show is available everywhere you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you want to leave a review, share the links there. These are all little things that help the show grow. So thank you very much for that and for listening. And real quick before we get into it, you can also, of course, follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey. If you want me to come do stand-up in your city, message me there. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I want to do that show in your city also, and I would really appreciate it. So thank you guys again for checking my podcast out, and let's go to my chat with comedian Mark Riccadonna. Like a narrator kind of voice, but I just find that this is just naturally how I talk.
Yeah, I don't like when you hear podcasts and people are performing for each other.
Right. To me, it's just like it should be just like a conversation.
Yeah. I don't like. I watched a lot of, I listened to a lot of podcasts when it first started hitting, and it was like they were just talking at each other. Nobody listened to what the other person said, and it was just like, I can't wait to do what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And there was no like flow to it.
Yeah, that's like a problem I have with communication in 2019. A lot of times also I feel like people are just kind of either just shouting their thing and then waiting for the next time to do their thing.
Yeah.
And no one actually listens.
It's not even a political statement, what I'm about to say, but we have a president who's known for a reality TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And reality TV is like where you reward people for behaving badly. They're the ones you want to watch.
Yeah.
And it's teaching people in society to be the complainer, be the one who yells, be the one who causes problems because it'll get you further instead of being part of whatever you're doing. It's like the anthill is disrupted now.
Yeah.
We all don't work as a team. It's all we're trying to stick out and be the
you're trying to be the one, the name. You're trying to be the one that gets more attention or gets more screen time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that's we've sort of. I feel like the internet in a certain way has almost kind of monetized that incendiary, like finger in your face kind of click.
Well, and the clickbait stuff. It's like people put really crappy headlines to get you to click on it, and then you find out it's like, you won't believe what happened to this star, barely recognizable, and then you go on it, and it's like, yeah, because they were famous 30 years ago. People age.
Yeah.
It's not...
That's just a natural thing that happens.
Yeah, like they're making it seem like, they did something horrible. It's like, yeah, they have gray hair now and some wrinkles. It's not this huge whatever, and shame on me for clicking on it.
Yeah, I've like to think I've gotten savvier about recognizing that kind of stuff and going, oh nope, not gonna do it, gonna walk away. My other thing is I tend to save like any sort of like serious discussion about current events for face to face, because I feel maybe me especially, because I'm tall, that most people will not like insult me to my face personally if they disagree with me. Otherwise people can just say like whatever sort of insanely hurtful thing that is kind of a point, your point, but not really, and then just walk away. I don't like it.
What's your age?
I'm 33.
Okay, so you're a little younger than me, but I feel like you probably same era. Do you remember when we were kids, it was such a big thing with road rage? Mm-hmm. Road rage was the pollution of society. The worst thing that could happen was road rage. Yeah. And they like scientifically tried to figure it out. And there's a documentary called Faces that John Cleese did. And the reason road rage was a big, big thing was if we're both pulling up to a stop and you both want to make the same turn, I can't see your face and recognize that you're going like, hey, sorry, or, so you just see the car. There's no human feature to relate to, so you just get mad. This guy's trying to screw me over. Meanwhile, you're going like, hey, man, I just need to get through. And then you're looking at my car going, this guy's trying to screw me over. So then both people get mad when there was really no reason to be mad. But now with the internet, it's road rage, but on a computer, because you're just looking at an avatar. You're looking at an avatar of a person. There's no human interaction. So if you and I disagree on something, we're sitting here together, we'll look each other in the eye, and there'll be empathy of you understanding my point or me understanding your point and going, oh, okay, well, you believe something different than me, but we can agree that it's, you want to do what's right, but you just see it different than me. And we can come to an agreement. But if we're online, we're like, screw you, whatever your avatar is.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like so much now those arguments are between like a bald eagle photo and somebody's baby.
Yeah.
So it's like you're arguing with someone's baby.
And your baby's ugly.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that wasn't necessary.
It's getting. I listen to a lot of more philosophy kind of podcasts and social stuff. I try to avoid comedy because we're in that world.
Sure.
And I'm really starting to see that it is. They back me up on the thought, but or maybe I'm following what they're saying, but a lot of the smartest people are getting rid of social media on their phones, getting rid of that out of their. So if I do have something I need to tweet or Facebook, or I want to share a picture because I went on vacation or did something, I have to manually do it. I can't just do it thoughtlessly on my phone. So then I don't go on and see somebody who posted something that drives me nuts.
Sure.
And then it sticks with me. That anxiety will stick with me. Why would somebody say that? Why would somebody do that? And it's like, I'm trying to sweep that stuff out of my life.
That's definitely, I think, a healthier way of living, especially because it's sort of like a necessary evil for the business that we're in. But then there's also all of this provable negative emotional reaction that it causes. And this is just, and I try to my best days, I'm flying under the radar. Like this week, I got a bunch of retweets on posting an episode, and that almost never happens. So I was very excited about that. But I'm never weighing in on like what's going on in the comedy community this week, or what's going on in current events this week, because it's like stepping into a pool of sharks.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much going on. Everything's a controversy now. Everything's a controversy. Mm-hmm. And everybody has a really heavy opinion on it. And then people have opinions on people having opinions. And it just this pile on of...
Yeah. It's like a snake eating its own tail. Yeah. It makes me kind of... I try to always think back to when I first started comedy, like the salad days, as it were, because when I was a door guy, and that's how I met you.
Yeah.
At the Laughing Devil, and I was just, I was like, I'm gonna do this job, and maybe I'll get some spots, and I'll meet some people, and I was just like enjoying watching the show, and I think that there's a lot of people, a lot of my friends especially forget. It's easy to forget the magic of just doing a great stand-up show.
Yeah, people there aren't. The people that paid to come and see you aren't necessarily waiting for a groundbreaking thought that's going to change their life in a way. They're just going there to have 2 drinks and laugh.
Yeah, or they're not looking for the solution to society's ills.
Yeah, especially you get a comic, they're like 22 years old, and they're up there telling a bunch of people who are in their 40s what's wrong with the world, and it's kind of like...
Yeah, and it's like...
Live it a little.
Yeah, it's like, I like where you're... I appreciate where your head's at, but I probably know more than you.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna necessarily take what you're saying to heart. I definitely I feel that way as well. I definitely think I don't know about you, but I definitely remember when I was in college and I first saw a Michael Moore movie, and I was just sort of like, wait, the world isn't the way it should be. I must tell everyone.
I got to get out there and change the world. And now I'm like, man, I'm just trying to get by.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at also. Just I'm just trying to be okay.
Yeah.
Day to day.
Better than just getting by is the goal. I have 2 boys, 2 young kids, and seeing the world through their eyes has made me calm way down, because I realize that it's like, at the end of the day, we all just started out as these innocent little creatures wondering what the world's like, like the baby's first born, all they know is that hospital, and then all of a sudden you take them out of the hospital and you get in a car. They don't know you're in a car driving somewhere. They're like, oh, I've seen a hospital and I've seen the inside of this tiny shell. And then you get to the house and all of a sudden they start like, oh, now I'm at this place. And it's like they have no concept and grasp of how big the world is, and they're just learning everything for the first time. Anything you do, they're seeing for the first time. And I remember when the guys, they were really little, we went to Disney twice in 1 year, and my dad's like, you better watch. They're going to think that's a thing. Like, every time it gets hot outside, we go to Disney.
Don't want to set too much of a precedent.
And on comic,
of course,
financially as a comic, it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you would want to become super clean and start doing the cruise ship gigs. Yeah. Which music? I've seen some musicians' blogs that seems like it's a pretty decent gig, but I definitely know the comedian opinion on the cruise ship gig is that it is not the most desirable place to be.
I think that, I think it used to be really bad. I think it used to be really hard. And it was like kind of where you went when you couldn't work anymore. But I think it's changing, because I see a lot of guys that I really respect doing the ships because the money's great.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I would do it in a heartbeat. First off, if that means, I'm being booked to do stand-up, great, number one. Yeah. Especially, I have that sort of like, pack dog, like, every little scrap I can get.
Yeah.
But then also, I feel like I don't know if you ever think about what your alternate life might might have been like in a different reality
all the time.
But I feel like there's a version of me that's like a merchant marine, or like someone who like just is out on the sea
discovering.
Yeah, and I can sort of have that like rugged sailor type fantasy via the cruise ship comedian job.
It's funny because there is something about being on. I've done a lot of the USO stuff, and
I wanted to ask you about that.
Whenever we're on ships, any kind of islands, and you're out on the water all the time, there's something like light and exciting, and it's almost like this. You feel almost like primal. It's like really cool.
Yeah.
Like vibe. And so like you're saying, like in an alternate life, you're a merchant marine. Like I totally get it. I totally get it. And like, yeah, I never put it in those words or those terms, but that's the feeling of like, you're out on the water and you're like, oh my God, there's just miles and miles below me of things we have no idea what's going on under there. There could be like 20 sharks just below us, or a giant blue whale, or an animal we've never even seen before, just underneath us. We have no idea. It has to be the same way astronauts feel.
I imagine so. Just like the sheer vastness of possibilities is just incredible. I always view the deep ocean as scarier than space. Space seems like the parallel of endless, boundless universes, whereas maybe I just watched too many documentaries about the Titanic, but I always think about like the bottom of the sea as just the end.
Yeah. Well, there's also the idea, like when you're in space, you can see forever. So you see if something's coming. When you're underwater, it's kind of like you don't. Yeah. There's no way to know what's coming.
Just kind of like looking up. So I wanted to ask you about doing USO stuff. Tell me about that experience.
So I got asked, it was funny, at a comedy festival, I got asked if I'd be interested in performing. And they used the term volunteer. And it specifically shot out in my head that it was volunteer because I so badly wanted to do it. But this was also, I think I'm doing a little better financially now, but this was at a time where it was like every dollar counted.
Sure.
So when they said volunteer, I was like, yeah, I'm really into it. But is there any way to borrow money to get the flights to go overseas? Because I couldn't afford to like fly to Kuwait on my own. And they're like, oh, we pay for your travel and we pay you to come, but it's, at a lower rate than you're probably used to. And I remember
I want them to keep thinking that.
I remember being so embarrassed to ask that it was like, I don't know how I would get there, but I would do it, because I was thinking like, if somebody asked you to volunteer to do something in Boston, you would just drive there.
Just drive to Boston.
And do it, and they were like, no, we pay for you to get there. And so I was so excited to do it. My first one was Iraq, and that was like a life-changing, just seeing the world through the eyes of the soldiers it's just intense. It's you realize the sacrifices they're giving, and I mean, just not even like let's take the fact that they're possibly getting shot at and killed or whatever. They're away for like a year. So if these people are married, their families, their moms, their dads, their brother, like they don't really have great communication with them for like a year. And I complain about like a weekend in Poughkeepsie because the phone service is kind of shoddy. You know what I mean? And they're gone for like a year. It really opened my eyes, and I think military wives don't get the due respect to fact to think like I'm married to this guy and I'm not going to see him physically for a year. We'll Skype and we'll do that, but
he's physically not going to be there. And then especially if you have kids and then there's the very real possibility, if it's during war, that he or she might die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was also, we were there the one time, a kid come running in during the show, and he just had a kid. They were FaceTiming the birth. And
Oh, wow.
he like come running in like, I'm a dad, it's a boy, and everybody started celebrating. It was like, oh my god!
This was during a show?
during a show.
Oh my god.
It was like the most exciting thing in the world because this guy just became a father. You know, like he was over there maybe 3 months, and all of a sudden, so now his kid's going to be, you know, almost hitting a year when he finally gets to hold him, and you realize that sacrifice is pretty intense.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
but then they sent us to some other places like Spain and Portugal and the South Pacific and, you know, Italy, Greece,
Sure.
and, Germany, where you're going like, you
It's a
really
little
want
easier.
comics? Like, you guys have so much more fun stuff to do here than go see a comedy show.
Right. Yeah, I always hear comics talk about like the gratitude that they feel from like the USO
Yeah.
USO performances.
And I was just upstate New York talking to a guy who was in charge of taking the comics around in Afghanistan. And he kept talking about how great it was that we would come out to do the shows. And meanwhile, we're going, yeah, but we go home in a month. We go home in a couple weeks. Like, you're there for the year. Like, don't thank us. We're here to thank you, you know? And it's like this never-ending everybody saying thank you to each other.
Oh, that sounds cool. If I ever get the opportunity to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I feel like I could earn some like travel cred with my fiance.
Oh, my
because
God. You guys travel more than...
yeah, more than average. I'm incredibly fortunate. Something I wanted to ask you. You know, as a comic, you got to kind of like tailor your set depending on what room you're in. Like, so you would probably need to be clean if you're doing a college show versus Friday nights at like Stand Up New York.
Yeah.
What were some things that you noticed? What were some things you did or noticed you had to do doing USO shows?
So it's a really great question because I have a theory in my head that I can tell the same joke anywhere because it's like telling a joke to your grandmother or telling the joke to your best friend you went to high school with. You're going to tell it different. The details change to the punchline, you know, so getting to the punchline is going to change. But when we went over for the USO, I remember landing and just going, oh my God, I got to write a joke about this. I got to write a joke about this. And I want to, you know, make fun of this on the bass and this and this. And then all of a sudden, when we did the first show, I realized they don't really want to hear about where they are. They want to hear about home. So they want you to talk about your girlfriend, your wife. They want you to talk about, you know, because they want to feel like for 2 hours, they're back home and not. They don't want to hear that their shower's weird. You know what I mean? So it was like with those guys, they really wanted you to do the most hometown stuff you can. You know, they want to hear about cereal and how crazy the laundromat is, and because it reminds them of home. But like I just got a phone call today about doing a college, and I was going, oh boy, I really want to do it because the money's good, but at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm going, college people want to hear about my wife and kids, you know?
Right.
Like, so I'm kind of sitting there, oh boy. So you got to figure out how to make it about them to relate the bridge. And I think that's what makes a good comic, is to be able to take material that might not be perfectly suited to an audience and make it seem suited.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of the art form, and I think you especially, because I feel like you, every time I saw you at the Laughing Devil or around that, you're always doing stuff that's very like true to like who you are as a person, and you're doing long form stuff also, like some kind of like storytelling kind of things. So I feel like even if someone hasn't lived that exact same kind of experience, it's still interesting and fun and funny to hear, I think.
And it's kind of, I mean, I guess for me, I did it and now I'm making the excuse behind it, but I would do only like real things to me that happened to me, and then telling the story and explaining it, even if you don't necessarily relate to what I'm talking about. It's like watching a movie. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a spy, but I'll still watch James Bond.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, so if you can make it interesting enough that they care about you, they'll listen to your story.
That's kind of how I've always tried to approach it. Like I love doing storytelling shows and just opening my set. If I'm just doing like one story, I like to open with. So about a year ago, I was running from the police in Santiago, Chile. Here's why. Or I used to live with a stripper. It didn't end well. Like that, those kinds of things. Now, if someone has lived that exact same experience, well, I bet they would love it. But you could also, there's that sort of like, what the fuck?
Yeah, where is this guy going with this? It's like playing a movie for them, but explaining it. Mm-hmm. And if you can do it, it's great. And I actually haven't seen you in forever.
I know it's been a really long time.
We got to do a gig.
I'd love to do a gig with you, man. Let's do it. Cause you were like, and then I want to trace your life arc here a little bit. So I was trying to always play it cool when I was working that job, but every time. I was like, I think that I was there in like 2011, and I was like scraping by, and I was just like, I was just hungry and and I was like, I had the dream, and was like, maybe this will help me get to that. So like guys like you or Kevin McCaffrey I had on, or Andy Hendrickson.
Oh, another great guy.
Or Mark Theobald.
Yeah.
Though you were all the guys I was like, wow, I want to be that. I want to do that. I want to be in that crew. I want to be in this club of comedians.
That was a really great scene down there.
It really was.
And I was a door guy at Stand Up New York.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, back early 2000s. And then I slowly became a booker, but then I left because I wanted to do comedy.
Sure.
But it was that same vibe. I remember going in, and I would just be hanging out, seating people. Mm-hmm. And watching the comics come in. And I remember seeing these great comics that would come in, and I held them on such a high pedestal. And then when I became a comic, they started breaking, and I realized oh, they were just struggling back then. Now they're doing great. But when I was, Pete Corielli would come in. He was just doing spots and trying to get by off of comedy money. Now you see him and you're like, oh, he wrote on all these TV shows. He did all this stuff, and he's, doing great. Adam Ferraro was another one that it was like, oh my God, like they were. Jim Gaffigan was like where we are now back then. And then he blew up, It was like, but back then I was looking at him going, oh my God, if I could be that good. And then he he doubled down into,
And then just took off. And then I also remember like when people I started with getting more club spots, or Jared Freed is a guy, or talking about people from the Laughing Devil. I just saw Carmen Lynch on Saturday night.
Yeah. Oh my God, I haven't seen her in forever. At
the Creek, working out new stuff because she's going to Montreal, and it was just fucking amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just. What's really cool too is, and it's a certain comics maybe not so much, but I try to run with a good pack. I really get excited to hear when people do well.
Same here, man.
I feel like a lot of comics don't.
Yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into.
And sometimes I'll fall for the bait where somebody will say something about a comic who didn't deserve something, and I'll be like, "What? I don't know." And then all of a sudden, there's like, it feels like I'm in detention, and we're talking shit about the kid who passed the test or something. It's
exactly. Like, it's that kind of I feel like it's a primal, like id-driven kind of itch that's really easy to kind of scratch. Like talking about Jim Gaffigan, that whole bit where he equates so many things in culture to just being McDonald's, like super easy, and it goes down even then, and it's not good for you.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of itch, I think, that's really easy that clickbait kind of itch that's super easy to want to scratch. But ultimately, like I feel just like, again, the baseline being okay day to day, and then you add trying to make a career in show business on top of that, I feel is just another another layer of difficulty.
And we hold ourselves to a standard that's kind of crazy because we're comparing ourselves to people of such a high level.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember when I first went into acting school, I was like, if I can make a living just doing art, I feel like I made it. It was successful. And then I started doing that. And it was a meager living. It was barely getting by. But I was doing it. But then I looked at the guys who were living a little more large or whatever. And then I was like, I got to do that. And I started doing that where I'm supporting a family off of comedy and off of writing. And then I'm like looking, and somebody brought it up the other day. They were saying something about like, you know, something with like Amy Schumer's doing a new project with, and they named like all these comics, and I'm going, oh man, why am I not doing something like this? And it's like, well, yeah, I'm comparing, you know, like if it was an analogy of like baseball, it's like I started out in Little League and I wanted to play in the majors. I got to the majors. Now I'm bitching I'm not in the World Series. And it's like, you have to work one day at a time, and hopefully you find your path that makes you do that. And I also get upset when somebody can easily shoot down a comic with any kind of ego by comparing them to somebody legendary. Like, well, I never heard of you. Like, I know George Carlin. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not George Carlin. He's also did comedy for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and there's a lot of high quality documented evidence of it. Yeah, that's kind of
we really I mean we should have goals and and things to look up to, but like we have to stop beating each other up over it.
Of course.
Cuz everybody holds success to finances.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe it's not finances, maybe it's reaching out to people, maybe it's getting your art out there, maybe it's just as simply as tonight doing one show that somebody comes up to you after and goes, oh man, I really needed that laugh. Maybe that's success. You know, maybe we should stop killing each other that it's like, oh, I'm not a millionaire.
Yeah, because eventually we're all just going to eventually get to a point where it's like, well, why am I not Kevin Hart? And then even Kevin Hart's probably like, well, why am I not
Richard Pryor?
Richard
Pryor was going, why can't I be George Carlin?
Right. So so tracing this a little bit. So you moved to New York when you were young.
Yeah, 17. I moved out.
And what year was that?
99.
99. Okay, so New York in the late 90s. I'm trying to picture the landscape. So what was the goal when you first got to the city?
I moved here to go to acting school. I lived in Times Square, and it wasn't cleaned up yet. They were in the process of cleaning. And,
gotcha.
I remember they were building a Disney store, and my door guy, the guy at our building was just like, that's not going to last. No way that's going to last. And like I remember like walking around Junkies and stuff to get out to go to school. Like it'd be the sun would just be coming up. I'd be walking to school and like stepping over you know, he might be dead, he might just be passed out, but
right. And
like all of a sudden, fast forward a few years of graduating from the academy, and Times Square's like, you know, M&M's,
M&M stores, Toys R the Line Friends store now. Yeah, it's a very different vibe.
And I'll be honest, I remember hearing people complaining about it, complaining that New York's not going to be New York anymore. I'm like, but I like living here now.
Yeah,
you know, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. I like thinking like I'm not going to have to get into a fist fight to get home alive. That's a nice byproduct of, you know.
I had a few friends that got robbed like at gunpoint. I luckily have never had anything like that, but like I don't want to live thinking about that. Like I don't want that to be
me neither.
Real. Every time I go outside, like, well, I got to make sure the street's clear before I.
Yeah, exactly. But, I'm kind of the same. I'm the same way.
The landscape of New York in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s was like the cleaning up era. Like it was like getting cleaned up, and it was getting, you know, I didn't know it was going to amount to the rents going as high as they are, and that's why I'm not here now. But
right.
I looked around, and you know, I actually was looking at Astoria and Bay Ridge because I didn't want to live in Times Square anymore.
Right.
And it was great while I was in school, but it was like, I don't think I can live, you know, with 3 roommates in a 1-room apartment anymore.
Yeah, you hit a certain point where you're just sort of like, I've maxed out on this kind of lifestyle. The same way I've maxed out on like a certain level of abuse I'll take to get stage time.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, no, I'm good. Or like, I messaged you about a show in earnest. Oh, it's a secret bringer. Oh, okay. No, I'm good. So did you start comedy in New York?
Yes. So I was still in school. I started working at a comedy club. I was Stand Up New York on the Upper West Side,
which is one of my favorite.
There's still a bunch of us got jobs there because it was one of the girls in our class was a waitress there, and she was making good money, and she was like, "It's great. The comics are fun, and you're hearing jokes while you're working. It's an easy environment to work in." So a bunch of us all went up there and started working. And I got the itch to try it. I really wanted to try it. And, I didn't really have anything in my head where it was like, I'm going to be a comedian. I want to be a comedian. It was like, I think I want to give it a shot. And I remember the MCs complaining about the checks. Because it used to be there was the check spot. The MC just went up and ate it for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the last comic. So the MC was always complaining about it. And I was like, I'll go up. And they're like, what are you going to do? You don't even do comedy. I'm like, who cares? You eat it anyway, right? Like you're just going up and dying. Yeah. I'll go up and die. Like I have no.
Why not?
So I went up and I had fun. Like I was having fun. I was making I didn't do impressions, but I did characters of people in my life. Making fun of teachers and making fun of people that came in and just messing around. I was just out there. It was literally like if somebody paid their check and started watching me, it was the equivalent of watching their kid after dinner. Like, the kid always finishes first.
Sure.
And it's like walking in the toy room and catching the kids playing.
Yeah.
Like I was just up there being a goofball, and I started getting good at it where I could get people to pay attention to me.
Yeah, that's always good when you can make the clear out of the show a little longer if you're doing well during a check spot. Yeah.
So it was like I was going up and I had a blast. And then, every once in a while we'd have a comic running late or a comic that would, they met the first comic didn't show up. So they would go, okay, you go on and just fill some time until he gets here. So I'd go up and I just had fun doing it. And it was, there wasn't pressure on it because I didn't think of it.
Yeah.
And then when I finally decided I wanted to give it a shot and really do comedy, then I started bombing nonstop.
Sure. Yeah.
Because then I cared,
Yeah, of course. That is so funny how that happens.
I'm sure if I saw any of the material I did when I was doing well, when I first started, I'd be so embarrassed for anyone to see it.
Sure.
Because I was probably doing stuff that I saw on TV. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like not stealing comedians' bits, but
just kind of like in that kind of style. Like sort of like
doing an impression of if Adam Sandler was talking about this thing.
Oh yeah. Like how I started stand up was I discovered Dimitri Martin and Mitch Hedberg. And that showed heady. Yeah, and that showed me that stand-up could be a avenue for weird thoughts said in a monotone voice.
Yeah.
So that was sort of like my comfortable mode that I could get on stage for the first year or two, and then eventually I've started gradually talking like how I talk in regular life on stage.
Yeah.
But that was sort of what I needed to get comfortable being in front of people. Is that sort of like absurd sort of what are you saying kind of mode. That's cool, man. Yeah, I've had every time I haven't been stand up New York in a while, but I got a couple of check spots there. I don't know who's running the show there now, but those were always great spots.
The last booker, Candy, we went to school together. We graduated together.
Really?
Yeah, we all got jobs at the club. We all just went to the comedy club. James the waiter is my old roommate. Matt, the old bartender, he since has found a really great job, but he works for Jack Daniels now. But he was my roommate. And there's like 4 of us that all lived together and worked together, and we just travel in. It was the craziest time, It was we got into way more trouble, and my liver probably hates me for those days, but. It was a great time.
That sounds like that's how I view the devil now. I always thought a great idea for a stand-up comedy related TV show would be not focus on a comedian trying to make it, focus on the staff of a comedy club, and just the kind of hijinks that occur in that world.
The craziest stuff was probably from the waiters.
Yeah,
they were crazier than the comics. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was like, I was a really horrible waiter. Mm-hmm. So, like, it was like the first week, the GM said, look, I can tell you're enthusiastic about working here, but I don't think waiting tables is going to be your thing. So I started seating people and answering phones, and I would, I did every job except waiter.
Was it ever your job to, like, remove hecklers?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was another thing they used to do is we had a door guy who was like hardcore security. Mm-hmm. So on the weekends, and they would have me go on stage and basically deal with the person who's the problem while the security guard came in and threw him out. So that way it wouldn't screw up any comedian set. So like I would be on stage fighting with the guy. The security guard would come in and throw the dude out. Mm-hmm. And that way whoever was next on the show didn't have to go up and deal with, I'm doing a 15-minute set. 7 minutes is them throwing this guy out who's starting a fight. I mean, I remember some serious fist fights happening in the showroom.
Whoa.
Our one door guy got a glass broken on his head. They smashed him in the face with a glass. And
holy shit.
Luckily, he was an EMS guy, so he kind of could take care of himself.
He could take care of himself. Oh, my gosh.
We had some... I remember one time there was a group in there, and Marc Maron was going back and forth with them, and it got bad. And Maron was really making this group look like assholes.
Right.
And they were. And then the one guy yells out, he goes, I'm a New York fireman. And it was right after 9/11, so everybody immediately then just clapped for him. And I remember being like, I don't think a New York City fireman would act like that. I don't think they would do that. This guy was being an asshole.
Sure.
And we found out he's from like some small podunk town up by the Canadian border.
Right.
But we had to have somebody throw him out. Nobody wants to throw out a New York City fireman, like,
of course,
5 months after 9/11.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be that guy. But eventually we found out this guy's not even a New York City fireman.
He's just an asshole trying to work the angle. That happened to Maron?
He's probably trying to get... Well, yeah, Maron was killing this guy. But it cracked me up because when they threw him out, the guy wasn't... and then I remember people coming in and telling us that there were guys pretending to be firemen to try to get laid. Like
of course. That doesn't surprise me at all.
They would go buy those hats down in like Times Square that said FDNY and go to bars and be like, yeah, I'm a fireman. And they'd be like, you're a hero.
Like rub it on the ground, get a little bit of like a little bit of rubble.
But then they would just pretend they were, that they were heroes to try to like pick up girls. And it was like, oh my God, men are relentless with picking up girls. Like you would do, that's the stolen valor or whatever it's called.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh my God. That puts my whole, like when one of Rich Voss's hecklers pushed me and started yelling at me as I was kicking him out. That puts that whole thing into perspective because I had Hofstetter to come and like get in between us before I got punched or had to do something back. Oh my God. I sort of miss those days a little bit, but I'm also not eager to return to them.
I wouldn't want to do it now, but I really did have fun. I remember going up and they'd be like, you got to get this guy out of here. We know this guy's heckling, but we haven't caught him red-handed where we can just toss him out.
Yeah. So would you go up and like antagonize him?
Yes. I would go up and pick a fight, basically. And then the guy would end up yelling, running his mouth, and the security guard would be right behind him, grab him, and just pull him out.
That's great. Security guards at comedy clubs, that should be a requirement.
Especially on weekends. Like I get in the city clubs, it's probably hard to, you're hiring an off-duty cop or whatever to hang out. It's probably expensive.
Yeah.
But On the weekend, come on.
Worth it.
It's so worth it.
100%.
And we also had a really great understanding with the precinct up there, that if we called, they were right there. They were always right there. And I remember the guy who was the MS guy used to just go over to people and go, hey, man, if I come back over, I'm going to have to throw you out. And they'd mouth off to him and go, listen, if the cops come, even if you're innocent, you're going to go, and you're going to wait for the judge to show up, who's not showing up till Monday.
Yeah.
So you're going to be there all weekend. They're not going to bail you out. You're going to have to be there. He would explain how the system worked, and all of a sudden I was like, all right, I'll be cool.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and no judge is going to be sympathetic to that. It's like, well, Your Honor, I was feeling intimidated by another man who's funnier than me, so I
You don't understand. He did a bit about dogs. I just didn't like it.
Right. I found his take on the temperament of dogs problematic, and I had to say something.
I had to stand up for the dog.
So you're in the city. You're working at stand up New York. This is always something I ask. This is always something I'm curious about. So you start doing comedy, and you're starting at stand up New York. And what other places in the city are hitting? Are you starting all in clubs?
So we had a lot of guys that were coming in and producing shows, and they would produce them elsewhere, and they would bring me in and let me work in their rooms. They'd have little rooms around, and I would do them. And then I started booking a lot of voiceover work.
Yeah, you kind of have a good voice for voiceover, I think.
So the manager at Stand Up New York, or the owner of Stand Up New York, wanted to manage me because I got my agent at the club. I wasn't supposed to be on the audition, but I went up.
Yeah.
'Cause somebody didn't show up. And they needed the hold until they got there.
Sure.
So I went up and did a set. I wasn't even supposed to be on the thing. So when the agency called the club and said, we liked the one guy, he was, and they described me, and Carrie goes, we didn't have a guy like that on the show. And they're like, he was the, second to last guy. And he was like, second to last guy was a female comic, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, he was like this kind of hairy,
sure.
Whatever. And then Carrie went to look at the tape and then realized I went up and was like, oh, yeah, I manage him. I manage him. I didn't know he was on the show. And then he managed me, and he helped me get in some rooms around the city. And then I just I really worked clubs more than the off rooms.
Like bar shows and the alt scene.
I was pretty fortunate for that. I know it's not the case for a lot of people. And then I also had a car. So I had a lot of comics go, hey, man, you drive me this gig and open, you do 15 minutes, I'll throw you some money. Like, all right. Next thing I know, I was getting enough of that work that I was like, maybe I can do this. If I took it very seriously, I think I could do this. And it was a blessing and a curse because it also, when you're trying to pursue stand-up, it's really difficult to also pursue acting because your hours are so screwed up.
Sure.
So my day work was at the club, and then at night I was running around the clubs to try to work. And so it was almost impossible to get auditions because I was always... I needed the work. It wasn't like I could go I'll not come in today because...
Yeah, totally.
I got an audition. It was really difficult. So then I started really doing stand-up full-time.
Nice.
I would say about 3-4 years in, I was full-time comic.
Oh, that's excellent.
It was, I'm thankful for it, and I know I was very lucky. I did work really, really hard.
Oh yeah, and that shows. You don't get that. You don't get to where you're at and as funny as you are by not.
Thank you. It's one of those things though, where it was I had a couple of people kind of tell me that oh, you're so lucky that this, and it's not like anybody handed it to me. I worked really hard to do it. I was in the right place at the right time a couple times that it made things work out in my favor. I mean, I'm sure there were other things that could have went. I auditioned for they had it at the comedy club, an audition for Entourage to play the turtle character.
Right.
Like if I would have got that, it would be a whole different.
Oh yeah, it's a whole that's a whole different ballgame.
Who knows what would have happened? But
yeah, I don't know if Turtle answers my Facebook message or not. But I absolutely hear what you're saying, and then also like no business owner whose business depends on the quality of the comedy show continues to put up someone that does not do well.
Yeah.
So you're clearly doing well and contributing to that business, to those businesses.
Thank you.
That's kind of something that how I always look at it, because like I get a little exhausted with the social aspect of the alt scene sometimes.
Yeah.
Where
it hang out to get the spots.
Well, it just seems like, well, as I was telling you before we started recording, I have friends that run really good independent shows, and I think I think, oh, they know me. We've had good conversations. They know that I'm a good comic. This seems like an easy ask, but then it's like, oh, I guess I'm not famous enough for that room. I got it.
It's the problem is there's no perfect way to get work.
Yeah, that's the maddening thing about it. Sometimes
you have to ask. But I guess if you're a sociopath or whatever, a psychopath, you could just nonstop ask people every day, and who cares if they get pissed at you? And when it works, and when it doesn't, who cares? Go to the next one.
Sure.
But you have to be on the booker's radar, but you also don't want to be pushy. So and every booker's different on how it works. There's this club in Tennessee that I love working. And the guy, it was like 6 years in between bookings. I email with the guy, and we have back and forth, great conversations. But I realized he never books through online. It's always the people that call him. You have to harass him to get the spot. And it's like, I really don't want to be that guy who harasses you, because when I email you and you email back, I feel like we have a good reputation together.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the weird thing. Like, how do you beg for money without seeming needy?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how Patreon got invented. I have some questions about voiceover, because I took a commercial voiceover class this year, and I want to do an animation one next year, because also thinking about like the idea of not comparing yourself to others. When I think of very happy for Kevin Hart where he's at. I saw him. I won tickets to one of his shows, and he was very funny. I wouldn't want to star in Night School, but I do like voice doing. But then I realized I do like animation voiceover and commercial voiceover. So I'm picking my own lanes as far as like personal happiness and what
you have to,
and what I'm selecting.
When you're just shooting a shotgun in the world of show business,
right?
It's like there's no focus. You're not going to find a lot of stuff, or maybe if you try shooting with a rifle, you can get something.
Yeah, exactly. Get good at sniping.
Exactly.
So tell me how you started doing voiceover. Tell me about your experiences doing that.
So again, this is like a super lucky. I got that agent because the comic didn't show up. I went into the agency, had a meeting. Actually, very funny story, and I'm sure I can say it without it being an issue. It was Abrams, and I had a meeting with them, but I was also in Texas doing a weekend. So I was supposed to fly in and be in the city by noon, and the meeting was at like 2. So I was like, I can do that. I'll just get a cab, and it'll be easy. So the flight was delayed. I couldn't get on the phone and call to tell them I was going to be late. So I landed, and I was super late. I come in. I get into the agency. We have this big meeting where I'm meeting everyone, and I'm like an hour late. And I'm like just so frantic that they thought I was drunk. I was just like, oh my God, this happened.
Sure.
Blah, blah, blah. And they're laughing, and then they started sending me out. And because I have my own particular style, but they were looking for, this was at a time when every breakdown had Nick Schwartz and Adam Sandler type. And I kept going in and just booking and booking and booking and booking. And I thought, this is the rest of my life.
Right.
This is all I'm going to do is go in and, I'm never going to have to wear dress clothes again. I'll just wear my sweatpants, go in, record. I remember I was making enough money on the studio fees that I was doing better than I was with stand-up. But then residual checks started coming in. And that's actually how I paid off school. I paid months worth of rent ahead of time so I could learn to be a comic and take these, $25 and $50 spots, but not feel like I was,
like you were drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had it kind of going on, and then all of a sudden I started getting feature work, which then became, like better money. And then I thought, like, this is great. This is so great. And then all of a sudden the shift changed, and they didn't want Nick Schwartz and Adam Sandler types anymore. They wanted whoever the next sound was. Yeah. So all of a sudden I couldn't get a parking spot in front of a voiceover audition. So I slowly came out of fashion, and it slowed down, and then I ended up switching agencies, and my type's never really come back, and I haven't booked anything in a while, but I still go out once in a while, and I have people ask me to record stuff for them, but it's if you fit what's happening, you're golden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the guy. And then also it's finding the agent that's right for you. Because different agencies have different types. Like if you're doing cartoons, you might want to go like to innovative because they're more into characters. Abrams tends to have the more like voice of God announcery type voice.
Sure.
So it's like you do a little research on who people handle. But right now it's like the Wild West. Everything's changed. Like now it's like you have to submit yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and a lot of
recording
pay-to-play
stuff. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. My instructor told me, that's an option, but
it's
he seemed to favor the have a demo that showcases what you do, learn the technique, and then go go the agent route.
That sounds the way better advice than I could probably give, because to me it was because stand-up became such a priority, I kind of left the acting world. Like I was doing independent stuff that like I would write and things like that, but now how you go about getting work is almost completely different than when I started.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s. It's almost a different world. Like there's still part of me that's wondering, how are agents 5 years from now going to get any work?
Yeah.
Or how are they going to? And it's because they do these pay-to-play seminars. That's how they're making their money, because you can book yourself on everything because everything's digital. There's no filter to keep the noise out. So if you went online and posted that you were auditioning people for a film, you would be inundated with everybody, because it's all accessible. It used to be you had to go through these channels to get in. Now it's
that's what I think the next big thing to resolve with media in the digital landscape is the curation of it, because everybody can make anything, and it all is of varying quality. Curating and finding that stuff, that it will be, I think, the next big challenge. Something else I wanted to ask you. This is also I asked Tom Rhodes this as well, because I think of the best way I want to phrase this. So I'm starting to do like more long form stuff and more storytelling things that like have punchlines along the way.
Yeah.
And I always feel doing long form stuff, especially at a comedy club, it feels harder. I always have it in my head when I get club spots, and I don't have too many right now, but I always put in my head, club spots, you have to hit jokes super quickly, especially in New York. Is there anything you found for how you work a longer piece in that environment?
That's the internal struggle, the fight that for anyone who does long form is, the club owner's on the other side of the wall and they just hear ha 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 ha. But if they hear they're like, oh, this guy's bombing.
Right.
The only thing you can do is not worry about it and just be interesting when you're not getting your laughs.
Okay.
If you have an audience leaning in to what you're saying and they lean, and when you do something, they react, even if it's not a laugh, but they're reacting with you, that's just as good as the guy who does a joke every minute or every 30 seconds. It's just as good. Club owners are going to have to learn how to change because more people are doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I know there's plenty of times that I've been on stage and I know the club owner thinks like, oh, it's not going well, but it is. And I'm sure I've lost out on work because I got to stick to what I want. I have to stick to my guns. Because, like I was saying later, I'm going to talk with Mike Somerville. Like, Mike Somerville's a guy who every second sentence is a big laugh.
Yeah. He was at the Devil a lot, too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He intimidates me when I work with him because he gets laughs every 2 seconds. And I maybe get one every 2 sentences, then it'll go 5 sentences, then it'll go 4 sentences. And I don't have a pattern.
Yeah.
And it intimidates me and it makes me insecure performing with guys like that because they set a tone. So it's like I always want to go first.
Right.
Because they set a tone, and like if you don't grab them right away, you start getting insecure. But you're like, no, you don't understand. You have to go along with me on this. So it's building that confidence to not get insecure about it and to not let club owners dictate if your set went well.
Yeah.
Off of laughs versus interest. If the audience is really into you, there's been times I felt like I bombed so badly. And at the end of the show, people were coming up going, that was the most amazing, and I love this. And you're going like, I thought I was dying up there, but I have people making me feel okay about what just happened. I mean, there's plenty of times that I do just straight up bomb. Yeah. But there are those moments that you have to hold on to because it's like you got people into what you're saying and about what you're doing. Where I know we were talking about earlier, there's the people who have like it's more about the point than it is the joke or the laugh. Right. But with storytelling, it's about emotionally being connected to what you're saying versus just the joke. And, I think with clubs especially, you do have to give them the payoff of it ending in a big laugh.
Right.
And you need to find laughs on your way to that. But storytelling is different than joke telling to me.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I respect both. I respect my favorite comedian on the planet is Rodney Dangerfield. And he's the ultimate joke slinger, Oh, yeah. Like every line has a laugh on it. Guys like Tom Cotter and Kevin Downey Jr. who could just every time they open their mouth, it's a joke. Yeah. I love it. I love watching it. I'm not good at it. So I don't want to try to do what I like watching, but I'm not good at it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I sometimes like watching comics that is not close to what I am good at because I feel like I will bleed interpret less like I'm not gonna suddenly start sounding like Luis J. Gomez. You know what I mean? But I think he's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, there's guys like him and the guys that work that are pretty edgy. Like the edgy dudes. Like I love what they do. I won't do it, but I respect what they do. Yeah.
I love hearing about it. It's like, that's hilarious. I could not make that joke work. Yeah. But good on you for doing it.
Yeah. Well, there is something to be said about knowing who you are and how you're perceived. I think that's a major thing. Right. It's like, it's half the battle. if you and your material connect, the audience automatically gets relaxed and enjoys what you're doing. So, like, if you look like Andrew Dice Clay, but you were going up and doing, like, a Christian comedy act, there would be does he not know what he looks like?
Yeah.
You know, and it's, I mean, and I know, like, guys hate having to pander to what that it is, but if you're, like, a 500-pound guy, you have to kind of acknowledge it, at least at the very beginning.
So that the entire crowd isn't just like, does
he know that he's huge?
It's actually interesting you bring that up in particular. A couple of years ago, I saw the band Bowling for Soup at the Gramercy. Do you remember them?
I remember. I don't know their songs.
That song, 1985. They had made that a song. So the lead singer. It had been a couple of years since I'd seen them, and he had put on a little bit of weight, and that was all I was thinking about. And then about 4 songs in, he's like, I think it's obvious to everyone that I've gained a few pounds. And they made a joke about eating like Bruce Jenner's penis or something. But yeah, sort of like, otherwise the audience can't think about anything else until you do that.
My old roommate was a little person, and he had very strong political and social points that he wanted to make on stage, and he didn't want to do little people jokes.
Sure.
And I remember talking to him over and over that it's kind of like, dude, if you don't at least make one up top, nobody's going to just listen, because they're going to go, is he going to mention it? Is he going to say something? Because you have something physically different that people are interested in. And it's, I go, I know you don't want to. I know you want to talk about the election, or you want to talk about, whatever, but you just have to acknowledge it and let them know you are acknowledging it with them, and they go, okay, now I'm going to get to
now
my
we're going to
stuff.
go on to the rest of the act.
Otherwise, you're going to fight your whole set of getting people to stop thinking about the obvious. That it's like, well, I want to know what it's like. Do you drive a car? Do you have, like, there's a lot of innocent questions. It's not even being rude. They're innocent questions, you know? But, like, you have to acknowledge things, because I feel like the crowd, it's why everybody opens with I know what you're thinking, or they open with, there's like a standard
there's
thing that people do it. And I know, like, a lot of guys will be like, that's hacky. But it's like, you also might just want to get it out of the way so you can just do what you really wanted to do.
Right.
Like, just making an obvious joke about your appearance is just like, okay, let's clear the air.
Yeah. I used to have it in my head that those kinds of jokes, that was a hack way to open, but I saw enough people start their Conan sets with something like that, where I was just like, maybe not. And then that's when I will sometimes open with this joke where I say I look like I alternate between Frankenstein's monster if he were an IT guy, or if Weezer had juggalos. That's actually a joke that Jake Hart hit me with at a roast battle at the Stand, but I've decided it's mine now because I live it. I know you got to get out of here, but I have one more kind of personal question.
I'm having a lot of fun, by the way.
Oh, dude, this has been great. Like, you're always super
I
cool.
wish I lived in Queens again.
I know. Well, next time, if we need to have another recorded conversation, I'll come to you. I can take the PATH train if you're in Jersey or whatever train it is. I can get anywhere. Okay. That's one of my
I definitely want to do this again. This is fun.
Yeah, dude, this has been great. Something I wanted to ask you, because thinking about where my life might be in a couple of years, as far as, you have 2 kids?
2 boys.
So you have 2 boys, and how old are they?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. So I have questions on how you manage to balance being a comedian and a traveling comedian, and then also having a family and being present there as well.
So I'm gonna, off the top, I have to at least clear having an understanding wife, and someone who gets my lifestyle and what I am is 90% of the battle, because when I'm on the road, she knows my time's kind of hard to come by, so we try to FaceTime with the kids, plan certain times.
Sure.
We when I come home, we make it a big deal that I'm home. So the kids will come to the airport to pick me up, and it's like a big fun day when I come home. And we also, what's cool is during the school year when my wife's a teacher, so the kids are on a school year thing.
Yeah.
But when I'm on the road, I'll be in Florida. My wife gets out a map, shows them where Florida is. This is where Daddy is, and this is where we've been here before. This is, and showing the different things. And do you remember this? And if I'm in, Maine, this is where Maine is on the map. And do you remember we went to Maine once and whatever? But this summer, they went on the road with me.
Oh, cool.
And they got to experience a month and a half of travel. They were all at resorts. All the gigs were at resorts, so it was like really nice. It wasn't like,
they were
motel.
Right. They weren't in like okay, so this is a comedy condo. The last time these sheets were changed, you weren't even an idea.
It was, and I didn't know that they understood what I did, but now my kids are really fighting to be funny. If they'll do something and get in trouble, and they're like, I was just trying to be funny. I was just trying to make you laugh. But I live for my kids. My work keeps me away from them, but I live for them, so when I'm home, I'm just with them. And I know I probably could be stepping up my career and doing more and doing whatever, taking meetings and doing things, but I'm there for them when I'm home. So a lot of people, they'll get pissed off because I don't answer my phone.
Right. The
ringer's off when I'm playing with the kids. It's like it's being married is the baby step to learning how to be married to a comedian, and then having kids is like the next level. And, luckily, my wife understands, and I tried to get a real job. When my first son was born, I tried really hard to get a job that would keep me home.
Yeah.
And I realized he was only a few months old, but I realized what you get paid to do a regular job was the same I was making doing comedy. Comedy made me happier and more relaxed when I was home, and I was home more because we work weekends. So even a long gig, if I'm gone, I quit doing the week after week runs.
Right.
But I did a Thursday to Sunday. But then Sunday when I got home till Thursday I had to leave, I was with the kids 24 hours. So I was getting more home time with the kids than probably a lot of fathers get. They have to work 9 to 5s.
Right.
Because they come home from work, have dinner, play with the kids for an hour, give them a bath, they go to bed. I spend the whole day with them playing and doing stupid stuff. Of course, our yard's all tore up because we're out digging and doing dumb shit. But but it's it's hard, and especially when they're real little, there was no sleep. I was coming home after gigs, it'd be 4 a.m, slipping under the covers at 6. They were waking up, and my wife had to leave to go teach. So I went about 2 years where I think I started going nuts because I was I'm sleep deprived to a point that I think I'm becoming paranoid. I'm becoming, it's almost like sleep deprivation when they start making people
like in Guantanamo Bay. They start blasting I think they used to blast Here I Go Again by Whitesnake at prisoners and sleep deprive them.
Oh man, I would have loved that. I should be a prisoner down there.
I was thinking this. I thought this when I heard that news story. I was like, I don't hate that song.
Yeah, I could do that.
I could make that work. What the thing is, they would find the song that they would find the Baby Shark song now and just be like,
well, that's kind of what. Forget Guantanamo Bay. That's what having a kindergartner and a preschooler is like. You just hear the Baby Shark song all day.
Yeah, that would be a great podcast. I want just critiquing kids music, like the Baby Shark song is just be repetitive. Not a fan.
My kids watch this one cartoon, and it's really funny. I think it's French. There's no speaking in it. It's this little creature that constantly gets into trouble. But they have so in the thing, they have Mr. Sandman play.
Uh-huh.
And now my kids sing it all the time. And it's like they're singing this like 50s song. And we'll just be hanging out, and all of a sudden I'll hear the one going, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. But then the older one kept going, Bobby Nuna. And we're like, what the hell is he talking about? And he said, Bobby Nuna. And he goes, it's the song from Booba. It's the song from Booba. And I'm like, there's no song. My wife and I could not figure it out. And then finally we watch it, and he goes, here it comes. Here's the Bobby Nuna episode. It was Hallelujah. I was like, I kind of like Bobby Nuna better.
Yeah, I agree.
There's some kid in the Midwest named Bobby Nuna that my kids are praising.
Well, it sounds like you got it figured out, man. It's good to. I like hearing that it's possible, because for the longest time I just thought it was like an either or proposition.
I think it's super possible. I think comics have a innate thing about being self-destructive and thinking that they have to be miserable. It's the tortured artist syndrome.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, no, you just have to be less selfish. It's hard, but life's hard. And I also didn't want to be the guy who's, 50-something and has 3 roommates.
Right.
And it's like I had to make sacrifices. I moved out of New York City. I didn't want to move out, but I knew I couldn't raise a kid here because financially it would have been too hard for me. And I would have, my, quote, art would have suffered, because I probably would have had to have done other things to supplement income.
Sure.
Where if we moved out, I could continue my life as I was doing, and the money would stretch further because I wouldn't be in New York City anymore.
Of course.
So it was you have to sacrifice. It's hard work. It's sleepless nights and hard, whatever. But this morning I got up with the kids, and I was so thankful. It's like, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go record a couple podcasts, have some fun. And then I'm going to hop in my car, tonight after I do a show. And I'm going to actually drive to Ohio and spend a week out there, because I have a show Saturday out there.
Nice.
And I'm going to go stay with my parents and vacation for a week. But it's like the comic schedule is so great for small children. Because I just take them wherever I want to go. So my wife's meeting me out there, and we're going to just have a fun week.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. This is great.
Yeah, this has been really great, because to me, I still feel like I'm just that the door guy who doesn't deserve a seat at the artist's table. So the fact that
I'll tell you what, looking at your apartment, you have the coolest table, and anybody who's an artist would kill to be in this apartment.
Well, thank you very
beautiful art and beautiful stuff. We didn't even get into. I wanted to talk to you about traveling, so that'll have to be part 2.
I think so. We'll definitely do a part 2, man. Is there anything that we can plug before we get out here?
Yes, the Bellwether Music Festival in Waynesville, Ohio. Please, if you're anywhere out there, it's going to be amazing. The Cold War Kids, Cake, Daryl Hall. It's all these great musicians, and I am so lucky. Kevin Downey Jr. and myself are going to be kicking it off, doing the first show of the festival. We're the 2 comics on it, and I'm so excited. It's in August, and so hopefully just look up Bellwether Music Festival, and you'll see the schedule. It's really great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Again, we'll do another episode. We'll talk all about travel.
Yeah, let's do it.
That sounds great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I learned a heck of a lot sitting down and talking with Mark. I feel like that's the kind of conversation that's almost like the comedian equivalent of like, a fatherly kind of advice hot episode. So thank you, Mark, so much for your time and for your hospitality. I appreciate you coming over and doing my show. And I look forward to our next episode where we focus on traveling exclusively, and I think that'll be a really fun one as well. I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you and the fact that you enjoy my work enough to support me at that level. If you want to join Mary Beth on and also get some exclusive bonus content that I don't put out anywhere else, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster, and there's some interesting things that I'm doing over there. So I would love to be able to sign up a few more people. So thank you guys again for checking that out. I'm on Twitter at Comic Will Carry. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at AwesomeDPod. I've really enjoyed where this show has been lately, and I'm glad that I am able to share it with people and they enjoy it as well. So thank you guys again for being here, and I will see you next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.